Hi there, thank you for tuning in to Totally Original Command Tower. I'm Geo, and this is going to be a deck tech review. The review that we're currently doing right now is going to be of Lovisa Coldeyes. Each creature that's a barbarian, warrior, or a berserker gets +2/+2 and has haste. There are many ways that you can end up building this deck. However, what I tend to have focused on was just winning through overwhelming board presence. First thing I want to talk about is one of your two forms of card draw, which is going to be Mind's Eye. Is a 5-drop. Whenever an opponent draws a card, you may pay 1 mana if you do draw a card. It's one of the better ways to do it because you can control it. And if you pair this up with a wheel where everybody pitches their hand and draws 7 cards, provided you have enough mana, use that to fill your hand up fairly quickly and continue playing out the deck. The other form of card advantage that you can get that I tend to use a lot is going to be Sunbird's Invocation. When you cast a spell from your hand, you reveal the top X cards from your library, where X is the spell's converted mana cost. You may cast a card revealed this way with the converted mana cost of X or less without paying its mana cost, and then you put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Vanquisher's Banner, which is a 5-drop artifact. When it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creatures of chosen type get +1/+1, and whenever you cast a creature of said type, you draw a card. Now, if you pair that up with Sunbird's Invocation, essentially gives you a lot of card draw if you're constantly casting creatures over and over again. Possibility Storm is another highlight of the deck. A lot of people will see this card as a pure chaos card. You don't have good ways of countering spells, so this is a good way to make sure that people who want to counter you or slow you down themselves get slowed down. I recently added into the deck is Mana Echoes, just for additional mana. What this card does is whenever a creature comes into play, you may add 1 colorless mana to your pool for each creature you control that shares a creature type with it. When you're flooding the field with your warriors, you're just getting near limitless amounts of colorless mana for you to use whatever you want. You can Sensei's Divining Top with it. You can throw down your artifacts with it. With Sunbird's Invocation out, you throw down those 5-6-drop artifacts. You're also oftentimes getting a creature, getting a different artifact or enchantment that you needed. Things like that. How do we gain advantage in combat? We're mono red, we don't have a lot of good stuff. Well, the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure we have a large enough board, and Oketra's Monument helps fulfill that requirement. It creates a 1/1 Vigilant White Warrior token, so every time you cast a creature, you're getting a 1/1. The most common combat trick is going to be infinite combats or multi-combat. One of the easiest ways and safest ways to do this is through Neheb the Eternal and Aggravated Assault. Neheb the Eternal does inflict 3, which is whenever the creature is blocked, if any player loses 3 life. But most importantly, at the beginning of your post-combat main phase, add red mana to your mana pool for each 1 life your opponents have lost this turn. Aggravated Assault says pay 3 colorless and 2 red, untap all creatures you control. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase, followed by an additional main phase. In a lot of cases, what you'll want to do is you'll want to hold back Neheb because you don't want him to die, and you just use his ability to constantly give you an additional post-combat main phase and a combat phase. That way his effect keeps on triggering. If you have any of the value engines I mentioned out, you can start casting things out of your hand. This is very easy to see coming and very telegraphed. You throw Neheb down, people are going to kill you. So some other things I've added into the deck that are worth mention. Sulfuric Vortex. You don't have a way to gain life outside of equipment, and you really honestly in this deck don't want to run too much equipment. So Sulfuric Vortex deals 2 damage at the beginning of each player's upkeep to that player, and it stops life gain. World at War is a sorcery with Rebound. After this post-combat main phase, you get an additional combat and an additional main phase. And Rebound will exile it and then recast it at the beginning of your next turn. Tauren Mauler, paired with Mana Echoes, is extremely good, mainly because it is every creature type, so the moment one of your opponents plays a creature, you then add colorless mana pool equal to the number of creatures of that type that are on the field. Mana Echoes doesn't care if it's your turn or their turn. Sorry, it's a changeling. It's got the changeling effect. There are plenty of shapeshifters that don't have changeling. Archetype of Aggression is a great way to ensure that you can get through people, and more importantly, that they can't get through you. You're flooding your field with a bunch of little guys that eventually become big guys through support. so you fall quickly to trample and flying. Something I haven't added into the deck that I've thought of playing around with was a Chroma's Memorial to give them flying. Nykthos Shrine to Nyx. You're mono color, there's no reason not to run it. With your Mind's Eye combo and wheel effects, it doesn't hurt to have a Thought Vessel or a Reliquary Tower. That way you can fill your hand really quickly on the wheels and keep that hand. Ash Zealot, really strong for flashback and any type of card that can be cast. One of the 2 equipments that I do run in this deck is going to be Dowsing Dagger, which flips into a Lotus. It flips into the Lost Veil, which adds 3 mana of any color to your mana pool. The Sword of the Animist, that way you have a form of ramp for your deck, because red has no land fetching. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the highlights of Lovisa.